Wonder if he's serious about your relationship or why he might be ignoring you? Hi, I'm Jill Collins, and today we're cutting through the confusion with the help of Jonathon Aslay, one of America's top midlife dating coaches. In this special episode, we'll discuss how to recognize the signs of a man who truly wants a serious relationship and what to do when you feel ignored. Jonathon's insights will empower you with the confidence and knowledge to navigate your love life in midlife with clarity and purpose. Whether you're seeking commitment or trying to understand his behavior, this conversation is your guide to a more fulfilling relationship.
The minute you're physically intimate with someone, you can establish feelings for another person. You could establish attachment to another person. You could establish some affinity for another person. There's no real meat to the relationship other than spending time together. Marriage or living together is about as close as you can get to all in. If one person is all in and the other is like, I'm just testing the waters. Oh, I'm just dipping my toe. Oh, you're just a placeholder in my life. There is a person that's going to get hurt. All in is an awareness that you are going to be intentional about the process. You're going to have the other person's feelings in your mind, in your consciousness, when it comes to expressing your own feelings, recognizing that people get attached and that you're intentional about the process of getting to know someone. Intentional and not cavalier, ambivalent, ambiguous. The missing piece for most people today is commitment. I'm committed to wanting to see if you're the one. I'm committed to investing the right amount of time to say, I want to know if you're the one. At the time you have sex, you should make a declaration of something. I'm exploring this from an all-in perspective. Are you in the same place? 90% of people will say, no, I'm not in the same place. But what that tells you is they're not ready. Because when someone is ready, they're willing to go all in from the exploration of seeing if we're a fit for one another. For some people, drama was almost their entire way of life. And so what's interesting is some people can get addicted to the drama and stay in these storming, norming patterns. Or they meet a person that gives them no drama, and then they run away from those relationships because all they're familiar with is the drama. So all of a sudden they're in this healthy relationship for the first time in their life, possibly. And it's like, it's not drama. You don't need the drama to be happy. What I invite everyone to do is to be intentional in the process of mating with another human being. Two people have their own unique traumas, usually centered around their past relationships, and they're bonding together in the shared experience of it. If you don't outgrow that experience, one person's going to outgrow it, and they're not going to be any satisfied anymore because then the other person is still stuck in their narrative. So these are usually people, what I've observed, are stuck in the past. When a person is talking about their past relationships, pay real close attention to how charged they are. When a person is talking so incessantly negative about a person, that's almost like a lightning bolt. Versus someone says, you know what, I wasn't in a really great relationship. She wasn't right for me. I wasn't right for her. We were misaligned with each other. It didn't work out. Almost little or no charge. How someone describes their past relationship and how charged they are will give you a clue of actually how present they can be in a future relationship, how emotionally mature they can be in a new relationship. Because the more charged a person is, the more time it's going to take for them to heal if they actually do the healing work. You got to take ownership on your part. Pointing the finger at the other person, it means you need more healing for yourself. Because when you can take ownership, even if it was 3% of what went wrong, when you can embody that 3% and say, I take full ownership of that, and you're not charged, you're in a great position to be in a healthy relationship if you see something enough to address it sooner rather than later. Secrecy is what destroys relationships. Vulnerability, authenticity, transparency is how you build trust and intimacy with someone. Lay our cards on the table. It's like, look, this is who I am. This is all of my experiences in the past. I think a good indicator of someone's future is how they operated in the past. But also, the alliterations of how you've operated in the past. So when you're first communicating with someone, I think it's important to really establish at least most important criteria is one, a person has a connection with the divine, a connection with source, a connection with something beyond themselves, spirituality, that sort of thing. The second piece is they have a real desire to do personal development work, self-help, spiritual work, grow, heal childhood wounds and traumas. Have that be the questions that you want answered before you even go on a date with someone. And that'll put the odds in, how do they say in Hunger Games, may the odds forever be in your favor. We all value honesty, integrity, trust, that sort of thing. So if health is a core value for you, then dating someone who smokes 10 cigarettes a day and eats bonbons all day long probably isn't your ideal partner. Next, most importantly, is can the person you meet, can their lifestyle blend in with your lifestyle? For those of us in midlife, this is one of the most critically challenging areas in relationship, particularly because of proximity. When the further two people are apart physically, the harder it is to create continuity in a relationship. Lifestyles have to be blendable. And most importantly is around emotional maturity. Sadly, we are swimming in a sea of emotional dysfunctionality. The number one emotional health issue facing most humans is, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not likable. And sadly, dating triggers these wounds like nobody's business. Rather than the question of where are the men, the real question is,
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And if you are, consider subscribing. 93% of you that listen to this podcast regularly have not yet subscribed. If you like this channel, can you do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe button? It helps this channel more than you know. And the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get. Thank you.
How do I attract a partner that's really aligned to who I am and what I want? That would be a question that has some more validity as opposed to where they are. When we're meeting total strangers, it relies heavily on traction just to get the balls rolling, just to get it moving. And it doesn't contemplate shared values, blendable lifestyles, and emotional maturity. And particularly when I say emotional maturity, that's one of the most significant areas of pre-qualifying, ideally, what we need to be focused on. And I say need to be focused on because we are swimming in a sea of dysfunctionality as human beings, particularly in their capacity to be emotionally mature and, more importantly, have relationship skills. It's okay to do whatever you want. If I was a younger guy, I'd be dating nothing but older women. I would just be all over them. And let me tell you why. You get all the benefits. They oftentimes have a good high sex drive. They've got their act together. You don't have to worry about getting them pregnant. And you have an easy exit clause when you want to end the relationship. That is, I'm going to find someone I can go make babies with. So your challenge with dating a younger man is he has a built-in exit clause if he doesn't currently have children, because he can use that as a way to exit the relationship. So then the question becomes, why would a younger man want to date an older woman? I just gave you the reasons why. Do you want to take the risk? You have to become the partner you want. We have to first work on that ego part that believes physical attraction leads to a relationship success. It's important to be attracted to your partner, but that's not a guarantee for relationship success. If you're going to take the risk of asking someone out, you better be prepared for what we deal with all the time, rejection. But I always like what Albert Einstein looked at rejection when it came to creating the light bulb. Every failure he looked as one step closer to creating what he wanted. You can look at it from the glass half empty or the glass half full. It's one step closer to getting what you want. You practice the law of attraction in your business life. Why aren't you doing the same in your personal life? When you say, here's the challenge, if the story in your head is there's no good men out there, men are users, men are takers, men are commitment phobics, yeah, you'll attract more of that. You'll only see that. So what's the first thing to do? It's raining great men. It's raining great men. It's raining great men. Let's be clear. Your body is equally important to a man. Well, I don't mean to women, but that's a huge criteria. So if you put a photograph of what your body looks like, whether it's in a bikini, whether you're in a workout clothes, but something that tells me what your body looks like and not these angled kind of things. We have to own what our bodies look like, okay? Not a derivative of what your body looks like. When a man only sees headshots, in the back of his mind, he might just reject you because he's afraid of what might be underneath, okay? So you might get a date, but you might not get a call back ever. So why waste your time? Put together the presentation of what you look like. And a bikini doesn't mean you're a low-hanging fruit. Okay, that's a misconception. Now, if you're exaggerating your body and you're doing it to get attention, you're going to get low-hanging fruit because you put out low-hanging fruit. But I don't think a bikini in and of itself, if there are other quality photographs included. Men who are genuinely serious about long-term commitment know within 90 days whether or not she's someone he's willing to go the distance. I say this because every man I know that's in a happy relationship, they knew it early on, okay? So the minute someone says, let's take it slow, let's see where this goes, you're not the one. You're the one filling the placeholder until someone else comes along. Self-love is a journey that takes a lifetime to experience, and you probably don't fully actualize as a person who's loved themselves until seconds before you die, most likely. If you want to be in a relationship, are you fully committed to going all in with somebody? Sometimes two people join together and one person is fully ready to go all in and the other person isn't all ready to go all in. And so what happens is if they choose to do the work to heal, the problem is they can't do it with you. They have to do it on their own and then choose to be all in with someone who's also all in with someone. So that's why coming back full circle to why marriage is so important. I love all the people say, I'm happy single, I'm happy single. But you just told the universe, you're happy and you're single. All right. So the universe is going to go, I'm not going to give you anybody because you already told me you're happy and single. Okay. Or excuse me. So I think you get the gist of it. It is incredibly rare for a woman to ask a man to marry him, right?
Yeah.
It's not part of the framework or because it's too masculine or whatever. That's bullshit. Asking a guy to marry you, think of what that does. It declares the relationship. You really know how he feels about you in that moment if you do the asking. Think about that. I really want to really think about this. Because why is it that women, you said this earlier, where's this relationship going? You're giving him your power. So stop complaining about the patriarch when in the most critical phase of your life, you're waiting for the man to ask you. Ask him merely to get a temperature gauge. And guess what's going to happen? He's going to double talk you. And you'll succumb to that bullshit double talk.
Okay. What will he say?
I'm just not ready. I could see it. Whenever they say that is an excuse, you've already doubled down on it, you're going to stick it out. That's the time to say, if you're giving me excuse, say, you know what? I want to wish you all well. I'm going to move on. That takes courage to look someone in the eye and say, look, I love you. I care about you. But if you're not on the same page with me, then I'm moving on. Men operate differently than women. And to some degree, biologically, we do have differences. But at a core level, we're actually close to being rather the same. One of the fundamental desires for human beings, I'm going to use the term human beings a lot in this conversation, is to be in relationship with somebody who has an agreeable personality. But I've experienced women, or people, I should say, men and women, who have rather disagreeable personalities. They're always the opposite of what you say. And now, I suspect some people stay in relationships with those people because it's actually a wound that they experienced in childhood, meaning it was very familiar to them because maybe one or both of their parents had a disagreeable personality. And so they were witnessing this disagreeable personality. And in that disagreeable personality, they meet somebody who also has a disagreeable personality. And they're just familiar with that. They're just used to that combative kind of method of communication. For those human beings who have done some level of personal development, self-help, and spiritual work, really has done introspective work, they've healed childhood wounds, adult traumas, they are working on themselves to be, for lack of a better word, a better human being, okay, a more evolved human being, an awakened human being, a conscious human being, whatever that means to someone, okay? They would prefer to be in a relationship with a person that has an agreeable personality versus that disagreeable personality. It's agreeable without being a doormat. In other words, it's not agreeing to everything. That's different, but having an easygoing, agreeable nature is more attractive, whether you're a man or a woman, than those that actually probably are living a bit in their wounds, because human beings are living in victim consciousness. They don't take ownership of their own experiences. They have a tendency to blame or complain or point the finger, that sort of thing. So those human beings tend to have a little bit more disagreeable personality. When I talk about easygoing, agreeable personality, absolutely one of the fundamentals is to have solid boundaries in your life. I'm a big proponent of having boundaries. That's actually one of the traits that is very attractive to that evolved person. Like when an individual can stand up for themselves and say, that doesn't feel right to me. Okay. And again, it's coming from the me perspective, not the sense of this is truth. This is my truth versus the truth. Many people prefer to look at a circumstance and say, no, this is the absolute truth. No, that's just your truth versus that someone else has their own truth. When somebody is just constantly agreeable and has no boundaries. So, as I said earlier, agreeable without being a doormat, one. Having healthy boundaries is also making agreements with your partner. It's like saying, you know what, I'm not really up for that. Would you be up for this? In other words, offering an alternative where you can come to an agreement with something. There's a significant percentage of men that rule by their libido. And there's this narrative that's been said for years. A man falls in love through sex and a woman gives sex hoping for love. I didn't coin that's an abbreviated version of it. I think there are plenty of men that I consider myself a conscious, evolved, awakened, aware type of guy, but I'm still driven by my penis. It's almost innately biological for me. Or it is biological for me on some level. And at the same time, it's like the devil and the angel on your shoulder. The devil wants sex and the angels, I want that emotionally, connected relationship. So sometimes they're at odds with one another to some degree. A healthy, evolved person isn't ruled by their libido. They're not hyper-focused in their libido. It's there, it exists, it's part of passion, it's a part of lovemaking, it's a part of real connection with another human being, but it doesn't override that desire for not only an emotional connection, but I think most human beings are thirsty for deep friendship with their partner. That's what human beings in romantic level desire when they've shed the egoic pieces of the expectations and the imprinting and like socialization. All of that stuff plays a part into the quagmire of a human being. And so we're in these kind of juxtapositions within our mind with so many different layers going on. And I know I just said a lot of gobbledygook, but my point is, when two people enter into the process of dating, and let's take out the word dating and let's replace it with getting to know you. When it's done from an intentional perspective and not a biological perspective or even an emotional perspective, I'm talking from a real pragmatic perspective, then you operate by going, are we really compatible with one another? Like, let's find out if we're compatible with one another, because most humans have this misconception that chemistry equals relationship success. So it's not about them understanding me. It's me recognizing that I am following a pattern in the people I've chosen in my life. Most of the time, I would say that, and I have to be careful because I am a public figure and the people I'm talking about could be investigated. No, I think unfortunately, the women in my life have had some traumatic childhood experiences, real trauma. And because I'm not activating their trauma, they get rather bored with me. In other words, their subconscious need is, I need you to be a terror because that's familiar to me. And I'm an easygoing kind of, and to some degree, these were all, but again, I can't speak for their experiences. I can only speak to mine. I keep choosing the wrong person because I'm following a pattern. We have to let go of what the man's desire is and what a woman's desire is. I'd rather human beings show up as the best version of themselves. What I think most human beings desire is an emotional grown-up.
Mm-hmm.
So what does an emotional grown-up look like? First off, they are self-aware. Now, meaning self-awareness is recognizing one's fears, one's insecurities, one's negative judgments of other human beings, how one's actions can affect another human being, their limiting beliefs, their negative patterns that bring them pain. And a self-aware person knows how to shift to love through these, we'll call them negative, but I don't even want to call them negative experiences, even though it might seem that way, because all experiences are designed to help us grow and learn and improve upon ourselves. But a self-aware person is aware of their fears and insecurities at a real granular level. Most humans gaslight themselves, or they do a spiritual bypass over their true feelings. And so I think self-love is almost like knowing who you really are. And self-love encompasses self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-awareness, all of the little facets of self beyond the unhealthy ego. This is part of the healthy ego. The unhealthy ego is oftentimes a little myopic to other human beings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the unhealthy part of ego. The other healthy part of ego is a real introspection part. And very few humans actually spend time being truly introspective. You have to love yourself before you can love another. It should be tweaked. Ideally, you are practicing loving yourself so you can practice loving another. And I use the word practice because I don't think in this lifetime, I think it takes 1,000 lifetimes to get really good at this. I differentiate between people with depth and people who are not very aware. When I share this with a person who's not very aware, they're turned off by it because it's not attractive, okay? Because what's attractive is showing up with confidence and being a leader and having your shit together, and all this stuff is confident, right? So look, you have to recognize that a man's threshold for having sex is much lower than his threshold to commit to somebody. In other words, our threshold for sex is almost the barrier to entry is the revolving door kind of thing. Our threshold for commitment is like an ironclad fortress, blocked wood, like gate kind of thing, okay? Dating apps state that men swipe means I'm interested, or we'll use the term like, 60% of the time, women swipe 5% of the time. Now, there's a misconception with that number. We will sleep with 60% of women, but that doesn't mean we'll commit to any one of those women. It's just our threshold for sex is rather low. Can be. Now, the evolved person, he's swiping right 1% of the time because there's physical attraction, and he's vetting through the process going, she's gorgeous, but I love Trump and she loves Biden. And that's, I'm just making up stuff, or the vice versa. I love Biden, she loves Trump kind of thing. Or I'm an empty nester and she's raising babies, or he's an empty nester. And this goes both ways. The evolved person only swipes maybe 1% of the time at best. Oh, shoot, we were going down a narrative. So coming back to commitment, I think there's a misunderstanding about commitment. Because I think of commitment in 3 layers. or levels. Level one is monogamy and exclusivity. Okay. A lot of people can commit to monogamy and exclusivity. Okay. Level two is teammates. Are we really going to integrate into each other's lives and do it as a teammate? Because I'm happy to get companionship, connection, and sex on a regular basis, and I'll agree to monogamy and exclusivity. Okay. And a lot of people, and that's actually known as a casual relationship. Okay. Many human beings will experience casual relationships. Now, a lot of women will enter into a casual relationship hoping that it'll turn into that level two I just talked about, where teammates, where you're integrating into each other's lives and you're operating as a team. The third level of commitment, which very few couples today, other than those who get married, experience, is I'm all in. Better for worse, sickness and health, richer or poorer. Look, I'm in this with the ride, no matter how ugly it gets, I'm in it with you. Most humans, particularly midlife people, and I speak to a demographic of midlife, which I say is after baby making years and before retirement. So most of the people I speak to are between the ages of 42 and 69. Mostly, I call that midlife. And some people go, 69 is not midlife. I'm like, my father lived to be 99. So in my world, it's midlife. Okay. Midlife people are rather gun shy. They are really reluctant to go all in with somebody. And that's what ultimately, do you want to just be dating every 5 years a new person, or do you want to go all in with someone? I think of all in before I ever meet somebody. Most men at midlife don't want to wear condoms. Most men don't want to. We'll resist it, we'll fight it. And it usually depends on how much trust has been built between two people. I would say it's almost, I'd say for the younger generation, they are so attuned to it that it's second nature for them. For those of us in midlife, that's usually you're going to get a lot of resistance around that, mainly because they were not worried about pregnancy. And men don't seem to care about sexual diseases because you can most of the time get a penicillin shot, which it's not penicillin, it's something else, but it's along those lines. One of my principles is to be safe. Everyone, whatever safety means for them, I'm a big proponent of that. So if it's getting tested, if it's wearing condoms, whatever makes a person feel safe, I'm a big proponent of that. I'm just telling you the way men typically operate, and there's always the exception to the rule of it's something typical. So I think when it comes to expressing our needs, it's very difficult to do this whether you're a man or woman. There's this almost expectation you're supposed to know. Like there's this expectation that every man is supposed to be James Bond quality lover, and every woman is going to be as agreeable as the James Bond woman. That's the expectation. So on some level, men desire women who are agreeable to a man's timetable for having sex. That's what men want, that's what they want from a woman. Now, a woman wants a man to be aware of her mood. A woman wants a man to be not only aware of her mood, that she needs some foreplay to get there, kind of thing. That's what a woman typically wants. What a man wants is sex on his timetable. So that's just the difference typically between men and women. Certainly there are those highly horny women that want sex on their timetable. It's interchangeable between genders, but for the most part, to get them in the mood that they're going to do some extracurricular work to get there, and men just want it on their timetable. Women are extraordinary givers. Okay, they almost give to a fault. They give as doormats. They do a lot of things that are not productive for them. But to really know how to love another human being, giving is not love. It's a form of love to give, but to really understand another human being, to really understand yourself, to really learn how to recognize what you're feeling and then express it in a way that's seen, heard, and understood, and to really have compassion for another human being. And let's go a step further, to really accept another human being. And by the way, and this has to be reciprocal. Very few human beings know how to do that. There's an old saying that men marry women hoping she doesn't change, and a woman marries a man hoping he does change. Okay? And I think what that means is I'm marrying you and you have to look exactly the way you look now for the rest of your life. Okay. I think that's what that means from the man's perspective. I don't want you to change, meaning I don't want you to, you were loving and kind and affectionate and feminine and had a great body and you exercise, and I don't want you to ever change. Okay. Women look at men as you're not very expressive, you're not very romantic, you're not very communicative, and I expect you to change. Okay. The next part of the scale is, and the reason why this isn't know thyself, is knowing yours and someone else's motive. Is their motive for love a short-term strategy or a long-term strategy? Is it short-term or long-term? This is critically important because a lot of people just have a short-term strategy. Women have a strategy. If we love each other, magic fairy dust will make every one of our differences work out, because that's what magic fairy dust does. The next level is the getting to know you level, which is an intentional investigation of compatibility. This is that pragmatic piece I talked about earlier, the getting to know you piece. The next level above that is commitment, which I've already outlined for you. Level 1 is monogamy and exclusivity. Level 2 is teamwork. And level 3 is all in. A lot of people just experience level 1 commitment. So the pinnacle of this, and this is stuff I'm still fleshing out, is acceptance. Acceptance is one of the highest forms of love. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So you have differences between you and your partner. You have differences in the way you cook food. You have differences in the way you clean house. You have differences in expressing yourself. You have differences in your desires. Like one might want to travel all the time and one's a homebody. One person wants to ski all day long and the other person wants to read a book all day long. Whatever your differences are. If you are going on the scale of love, you recognize you have differences. Okay. When your partner isn't exactly like you and you have a difference, we have a propensity to resent that person for their difference. That's one possible circumstance. I resent you that you don't clean the house the way I do. Okay. Monica from Friends. Okay. The OCD had to clean everything a certain way. Okay. So the next level of love is tolerance of the difference. I'm going to at least tolerate this. I don't like it, but I'm going to tolerate it. Okay. The next level of love is understanding of those differences. Okay, I understand this person. That's why it's so important to them that they do this thing that way, or whatever it is, that difference. Okay. The next level above understanding is accepting it. I'm going to accept this difference. Let's use the movie When Harry Met Sally. Sally had a very unusual way of ordering food. I'd like to have the meatloaf, but if it has gravy, I'd like to have the gravy on the side. And I'd like to have the Caesar salad, but if it has croutons, I'd like it on the side. And I'd like to have the apple pie a la mode, but if I can't get the pie heated, then I'd like to have cherry pie instead, and blah, 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 blah. And Harry's, oh my God, she is fucking neurotic. Because they ordered food differently from one another. First, the difference. He started to tolerate the difference. He then started to understand why those differences, why she had to do things a certain way, and then he accepted it. Okay? Acceptance. I'm going to get to why I think women fail in a moment. But then we go a step further. He began appreciating her style of ordering food. And then he reached the highest form of love, is he adored the differences. He said, you know what? I love it that it takes you an hour and a half to order a ham sandwich. I love it that you think 71 degrees is cold. I love it the way your nose crinkles out every time you get stressed out. I love it that you're the first person I think of when I get up in the morning, and you're the last person I think of when I go to bed. And when I realized I'm in love with you, I rushed here to tell you this is what he says at the end of the movie. Differences, tolerance, understanding, acceptance. Where I see most women fail is they're giving, expecting the man to go from differences all the way to he's going to change. Instead of going, wait a minute, we have a difference. He does things different than, by the way, everything I'm saying goes the other way around too, okay? This goes for men. This isn't singular to women. Very few humans really know how to love at that, oh my God, I adore this person for their differences. Most humans aren't really good at real, genuine compromise. And what I mean is, I mean it at a genuine level, like a real level. Not, and when I say compromise, really understand, like it goes back, it's understanding the other person. And going, it's okay that we have differences, because the compromise is not really a compromise. It's really moving to a place of understanding, acceptance, hopefully appreciation, and lastly, adoration. But you have to get past that ego part that says, I expect you to be perfect. The more closely aligned you are, the better chance of harmony. My whole coaching practice is about discernment. It's about finding that harmony of alignment, okay? At the end of the day, though, you're going to have differences. And so love is that those words we said, understanding, accepting, compassion, care, all these things for the differences. And women are great givers. You guys are beautiful at giving. We love you. By the way, we men are takers because you guys are such great givers. But I will tell you that very few people, men and women alike, really demonstrate love from the understanding, tolerating, understanding, accepting, appreciating, and adoring the differences. There, I said, mic drop, we're done.